What day is it today?
Baby, you've asked me that twice already. It's Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
A few days later, Amara did something she never thought twice about before, not intentionally. She simply came home exhausted and fell asleep before Daniel brought it upstairs. That was all. Nothing important. Or at least, that's what she thought. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains and landed softly across her face. Amara opened her eyes slowly, then frowned. Something felt strange. Very strange. She sat up. Wait, no headache. She blinked. No confusion. No heaviness pressing against her thoughts. No missing pieces. Nothing. Her heart suddenly began beating harder. She sat there staring at nothing. No. That couldn't mean what she thought it meant. The next night she told herself she was being ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Daniel brought the tea upstairs like always. Drink it while it's warm, love. He smiled, kissed her forehead, walked away. Amara stared down at the cup resting between her hands. Steam curled slowly into the air. For several seconds she didn't move. Then quietly, she stood up, walked outside, and poured the tea into a flower pot. The next morning, clarity. Again. No memory gaps. No strange exhaustion. No blackouts. Nothing. Fear crawled slowly into her bones. Cold. Heavy. The kind of fear that doesn't scream. The kind that sits silently beside you. For days she secretly avoided drinking it. And little by little, the fog began disappearing. Thoughts felt clearer. Faces felt familiar again. The world slowly started returning to her. But something else returned too. Something much worse. Suspicion. One rainy evening, Daniel was showering upstairs. Rain tapped softly against the windows while thunder rolled. Somewhere in the distance, Amara stood outside his office door staring at the handle. Her hand hovered in the air. For a moment she almost walked away, because part of her still felt guilty. Guilty for even thinking Daniel could hurt her. Guilty for doubting the man who had spent 8 years loving her. But another part of her, a quieter part, was terrified of what she might find if she didn't look. Slowly she pushed the door open. The room was dark, cold, too quiet. Her hands trembled as she moved toward his desk. One drawer, locked. Her breathing became shallow. Her fingers searched underneath, until they touched something taped beneath the wood. A key. Amara froze. A key? Why would Daniel hide a key? Her heartbeat began pounding harder. Slowly, she unlocked the drawer. Then her world stopped. Hidden camera receipts, medical reports, audio files, printed documents, stacks and stacks of papers. For a second, her eyes couldn't understand what they were seeing. Then she picked one up, and suddenly, everything inside her turned cold. Psychological evaluation, Amara and Subuga. Her fingers began shaking. She kept reading. Recommendation, mentally unstable. Temporary transfer of foundation assets. No. Her breathing caught. The room suddenly felt too small. Too small. She couldn't breathe. Because this wasn't confusion anymore. This wasn't stress. This wasn't grief. Someone had been planning something. Someone had been building a cage around her. Then, voices. Downstairs. Amara froze. Daniel. And another voice. Michael. Daniel's brother. Another month and everything becomes ours. Silence. Then Michael laughed. Nobody questions a grieving woman losing her mind. Laughter. More laughter. Amara covered her mouth so hard her fingers hurt. Because if she didn't, she would scream. The man she loved wasn't protecting her. He wasn't trying to save her. He was preparing to erase her.
Another month and everything becomes ours.
Nobody questions a grieving woman losing her mind.
That night, Amara didn't sleep. She sat alone on the bedroom floor while rain tapped softly against the windows. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Beside her, the bed where she and Daniel had shared 8 years of laughter and dreams suddenly felt unfamiliar, like it belonged to strangers. Tears rolled down her face silently. She didn't wipe them away. She didn't even notice them, because her mind kept replaying the voices downstairs. Again, and again, and again. Another month and everything becomes ours. Nobody questions a grieving woman losing her mind. Laughter, laughter, laughter. Every word cut through her chest like broken glass. For years, Daniel had kissed her forehead before bed. For years, he held her hand while crossing roads. For years, he looked into her eyes and told her she was safe. And now, Amara realized something that made her stomach twist. She had never been safe. Not once. The man sleeping beside her wasn't her protector. He was the storm. Something inside her broke that night. But something else woke up. Something colder. Something stronger. The next morning, Daniel found his wife exactly where he expected her to be. Quiet. Fragile. Confused. She smiled weakly. Forgot little things. Acted tired. Cried when he held her. And Daniel smiled. Because he thought he was winning. What he didn't know was that Amara had become a ghost in her own life. And ghosts are difficult to destroy. Days turned into weeks, and Amara played her role perfectly. Better than anyone expected. She forgot little things at breakfast. Repeated questions she already asked. Sometimes she stared out of windows pretending to lose herself in thought. Sometimes she cried for no reason at all. Daniel noticed everything. And every time he noticed, he looked relieved. Relieved. That word made Amara sick. Because while she was pretending to fall apart, he was becoming comfortable. Comfortable people become careless. And careless people make mistakes. So Amara watched. Quietly. She watched Daniel answer phone calls and suddenly leave the room. She noticed how quickly he closed his laptop whenever she walked past. She noticed certain drawers staying locked. Certain conversations stopping when she entered. Little things. Tiny things. Things she would have ignored before. But not anymore. Not now. At night, while Daniel slept beside her, Amara stayed awake staring into the darkness. Not crying. Not shaking. Thinking. Planning. Remembering. Then one evening, while organizing old classroom supplies at Little Lantern, she found something hidden beneath a box of children's art books. Her notebook. The notebook she had started weeks earlier. Slowly she opened it. Monday. Read stories to grade 1 class. Tuesday. Ordered art supplies. Wednesday. Helped Grace paint butterflies. Her eyes moved faster. Page after page. Date after date. Then her breathing stopped. Because suddenly, for the first time, she wasn't reading confusion anymore. She was reading evidence. Amara sat there for a long time with the notebook resting in her lap. She wasn't crying anymore. Somehow, the tears had stopped. Her eyes moved across the pages again. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Small ordinary moments. Tiny details nobody would think mattered. But suddenly, they mattered. They mattered because for weeks, people had been telling her she was forgetting herself, forgetting conversations, forgetting decisions, forgetting who she was. Yet right there in her hands was proof. Proof that her mind had not betrayed her. Proof that something else had. Slowly, Amara looked up. Her eyes moved toward the classroom window. Outside, children were laughing, while parents waited near the gates. Life was moving normally. Completely normally. And for the first time in weeks, something cold settled inside her. Not fear. Not sadness. Something else. Something quiet. Something dangerous. Because if someone had been carefully destroying her life, then someone had been carefully planning it. And plans leave mistakes. Amara closed the notebook, very slowly. Then she whispered, "Okay, now I start watching."